It happened many years ago, and for a brief moment, it surfaced on YouTube before vanishing. The case centers around what seemed to be a prank video in the style of Jackass, featuring a group of teenage boys pulling reckless stunts. But this wasn't just another case of youthful mischief. This was something far more disturbing. There was a recording, and it became known as the Werribee DVD. The events took place in 2006, in the Australian city of Werribee. A group of teenagers, who called themselves Teenage Kings of Werribee, filmed themselves committing a series of criminal acts. At first, it seemed like typical delinquent behavior, harassing a homeless man, throwing eggs at taxi drivers, and vandalizing local events. But then, the footage took a much darker turn. A 17-year-old girl became their primary target. She had a developmental disability, something the boys were fully aware of. They lured her in under false pretenses, leading her to believe she was meeting with just two of them at a local shopping center. But when she arrived, she found herself surrounded by 12 boys. They took her to a secluded riverbank, where they subjected her to relentless humiliation. They threw her belongings into the water, mocked her, and pressured her into participating in deeply inappropriate acts, all against her will. And they filmed everything. The footage was compiled into a DVD, which they shamelessly sold for $5 a copy. They even uploaded segments of it to YouTube under the title "Pimp My Wife," which managed to accumulate over 2,000 views before being removed on 2006 for violating the platform's policies. By then, however, the damage had been done. The case gained widespread attention when the Australian news program Today Tonight aired censored portions of the footage on 2006. Public outrage erupted, and authorities were forced to act. Until that moment, police had no knowledge of the DVD's existence. An investigation was launched, leading to raids on the homes of all the boys involved. 8 of them were formally charged and brought before the Melbourne Children's Court on April 2007. The charges were severe, among them, the production of illegal content. 8 of the boys pleaded guilty and were sentenced to rehabilitation programs. As for the original footage, both the DVD and the YouTube uploads are considered lost. Most copies were reportedly destroyed, and the remaining fragments only survive in censored news reports. The case became infamous, even drawing comparisons to Jackass. But the show's own star, Johnny Knoxville, publicly condemned the incident. He made it clear that what these boys had done wasn't about stunts or pranks. It was pure cruelty.
I was going to a radio station this morning, and I get out of the car, and there's a reporter going, "What do you think of the Jackass-inspired stunt?" I'm like, what the f*** are you talking about, Jackass-inspired stunt? We're not mean-spirited. We're not evil. We don't like those guys. Shoot those little bastards.
Both the DVD and the YouTube video are unrecoverable, and it's better that way. This is illegal material, the kind of footage that is best left lost. It stands as one of the most disturbing videos to have ever surfaced on this platform. Throughout film and television history, there have been numerous tragic incidents during production that resulted in shocking, unforgettable moments. Some of these events, captured on camera, were never intended to be seen by the public, locked away in the vaults of lost media. However, this was not the case for the incident involving César Pierry. Despite the devastating nature of the accident during the filming of a routine scene with a smoke grenade, this particular moment did eventually see the light of day. César Pierry, an Argentine actor, was at the peak of his career when disaster struck during the filming of his upcoming television series, Mi Socio Imposible. On July 10, 1992, Pierry was on set at the Sonatec Studios filming a routine scene that required him to handle a smoke grenade. an element intended to create a harmless visual effect. However, during filming, something went terribly wrong. As Pierry manipulated the smoke grenade, one of his co-stars activated it. Instead of producing only the expected puff of smoke, the grenade detonated unexpectedly, exploding directly in Pierry's left hand. The blast was devastating. Pierry suffered severe injuries. The footage of the explosion, initially recorded during the incident, was believed to be lost for years. It was a dark chapter in Argentine television history, and the horrifying moment remained buried, hidden away from public view. However, in 1998, a clip of that tragic incident resurfaced during a broadcast of the Mauro Vial show. The scene, which had been presumed lost to time, shocked the audience as the horrific moment of the explosion was revealed for the first time on national television. Some things were never meant to be seen.
¿Cómo te llamas?
Hola.
Ven con tus amigos.
Mariposas Disecadas is a film from 1978, a disturbing psychological thriller that was nearly lost to history. While it didn't gain widespread attention, its dark narrative and unsettling themes captivated those who managed to see it. With a somber tone and scenes that evoke deep unease, the film tackled taboo subjects far ahead of its time, making it highly controversial and nearly impossible to find after its initial release. Unlike other lost media that I've covered, this film was never officially considered lost. However, it was incredibly hard to find for years, with its haunting and shocking plot slipping into the shadows after its limited release. Part of the reason for its rarity lies in its deeply controversial subject matter. As you see, the film delves into disturbing themes, pushing boundaries in a way that made it nearly impossible to distribute widely. It was the kind of movie that people whispered about but few had actually seen. Because of this, Mariposas Disecadas never saw a proper home video release. It existed only in fragments, bootlegs, degraded VHS copies, and the memories of those unfortunate enough to have witnessed it firsthand. For decades, it remained a ghost, a nightmare that refused to die. Until now. The film follows Julia, a wealthy but reclusive writer who lives in an extravagant yet eerily empty mansion. Her world is one of decay disguised as beauty, and her most prized possession, a delicate caged canary named Plinio. Despite her wealth, Julia has no real relationships, only the unwavering servitude of her housekeeper Gloria. But Julia isn't looking for companionship. She craves youth. She craves preservation. One afternoon, a group of children wander onto her property, searching for a bird they hit. Instead of sending them away, Julia invites them in, her gaze lingering on one boy in particular, Orlak. He is quiet, captivated by Plinio, drawn to the way the tiny bird moves. And Julia? She is drawn to him. Her fixation begins subtly, but what seems like a strange yet harmless friendship quickly takes a darker turn. As the story unfolds, we are pulled into Julia's past, where her obsession first took root, through fragmented, dreamlike flashbacks. We see her relationship with Georges, a man barely out of his teens. Their romance, once intoxicating, turns toxic as Julia refuses to let him go. She watches his every move, controls his every decision, and when Jorge finally tries to leave, she doesn't just take him, she dissects him. But Julia isn't finished. Her obsession with Jorge may have died, but her obsession itself survived. And now, it has found a new target, Orlak. At first, she is patient, careful not to scare him away, but soon, her control tightens, Orlak's visits become more frequent, his presence in her home less voluntary. What once felt like harmless attention becomes suffocating. Julia watches him, studies him, and when Orlak begins to realize the horror of his situation, it's already too late. Because Julia has already made up her mind. She will preserve him, just as she did with Jorge, ensuring that time can never take him away. The dimly lit mansion becomes a prison, Julia's voice a whispering echo of madness. Orlak tries to escape, but Julia is always one step ahead. When the moment finally comes, when she finally raises the scalpel, the screen lingers just long enough to let the horror sink in. And then, black. No resolution. No comfort. Just the cold, sinking realization that Julia got what she wanted. But just before the screen fades completely, a sound cuts through the silence. A faint, weak sob. The child, dissected yet, is crying.